The SEAL commander's grin said everything. Just another desk jockey trying to play soldier. But when the enemy ambush pinned his elite team down and their flawless training couldn't save them, Rhina Carter did something that made every man on that ridge rethink everything they believed about war. She grabbed a rifle they didn't know she carried, stepped alone into the kill zone, and dropped 5 targets in 3 seconds flat. The commander muttered through clenched teeth as he watched her work. No woman shoots like that. He was right. None did. Because Rhina Carter wasn't just another woman. What came next would force America's most feared warriors to face a truth they'd spent their careers denying. The deadliest person in the room is often the one they overlook. The C-130 rattled through rough air over Corazon Ridge. Its cargo bay full of men who could sleep through explosions, but not through Rhina Carter. She sat still, strapped into a canvas seat, eyes open, following the flicker of shadows as the aircraft jolted. 28 years old, compact frame, dark hair twisted into a regulation bun that made her features look sharp. Same desert fatigues, same armor, same mask of indifference. But her gray eyes, cold as winter storms, tracked every movement with quiet calculation, like she was cataloging threats that hadn't even formed yet. Across from her, Chief Petty Officer Dean Harlow met her gaze, then looked away first. That had been happening ever since she joined their transport. The SEALs didn't know what to make of the woman from Joint Special Operations Command, who had attached herself to their mission like a shadow. Her record said, intelligence analyst. Her presence said something far more dangerous. 30 minutes to drop, the loadmaster yelled over the roar of the engines. The SEALs moved, checking weapons with the smooth rhythm of repetition. Rhina stayed calm, her hands working through her kit with surgical precision. Sidearm, mags, medpack, comms gear, everything placed exactly where it belonged, reachable without thought. Commander Blake Lawson moved down the cargo bay, gripping the overhead straps as the aircraft swayed. He looked like every recruitment poster come to life. Tall, broad-shouldered, square-jawed, carrying the kind of confidence born from never truly failing. He stopped before her, his stare steady, his tone clipped. Carter, let's set expectations. This is a direct action raid. You stay with command, observe, take notes. You don't fire unless we're overrun, and there's no other choice. Clear? Rhina's eyes lifted to meet his. Crystal, sir. I mean it, he said. I've got 12 shooters who've trained together for months. We don't need solo acts from intel. Understood. Lawson waited, expecting pushback or excuses. When she just stared back with unshaken calm, he grunted and moved on. Behind her, Petty Officer Jake Morales whispered to his teammate, Bet you 20 she freezes when the first shots start. No bet, came the reply. They always do. Rhina stored the voices, their tones, their careless certainty. Intel work had taught her one thing: people reveal the most when they think no one's listening. Right now, the men around Rhina Carter were proving her right. To them, she was nothing more than dead weight wrapped in red tape. The loadmaster's voice cut through the noise, calling out the final approach checklist. Rhina closed her eyes, beginning her own ritual, one that no one else in the cargo bay would have understood. She didn't pray, didn't visualize glory. She simply acknowledged the chaos waiting below and accepted it with the detached calm of someone who'd long ago learned that emotion was a luxury you couldn't carry into war. The ramp lowered, and the dawn air of Corazon Ridge rushed inside, dry, sharp, reeking of dust and fuel. The SEALs moved out in perfect formation, boots striking the hard earth in a rhythm of discipline and instinct. Reyna followed, taking her assigned position with the command team. Close enough to observe, but far enough not to interfere. Only she'd never been built to watch from the sidelines. Before this day ended, everyone here would know that. The compound sat buried in a valley, surrounded by terraced hillsides that looked ancient and scarred. Pre-dawn light washed everything in gray and violet tones, the mud brick walls glowing like ghosts in the half-light. Intelligence had claimed a high-value insurgent commander was inside with a handful of guards. 6, maybe 8, lightly armed. But Reyna had learned the hard way that intel liked to lie. The SEALs advanced with perfect precision, silent and sure, cutting through the terrain like they'd rehearsed it 100 times. She stayed close to Commander Lawson and the radio operator, eyes scanning the shadows as Chief Harlow led point, sweeping for IEDs, clearing corners, moving smooth and silent. These men were the best, polished, lethal, unshakable. Yet something felt off, that creeping sense that slid between the shoulder blades, the one veterans learned to obey. Too quiet. No dogs, no roosters, no movement. Just silence pressing down like weight. "Sir," she murmured to Lawson, "something's wrong." He gave her a sharp glance. "They're asleep. That's the point." "No dogs," she said softly. "Out here?" Lawson smirked. "Maybe they ate them. Carter, I need you to—" The blast cut him off. A deafening roar shattered the dawn as a buried IED erupted behind the compound. Time to hit the support element dead center. The shockwave slammed into her chest, flames and smoke twisting skyward. Screams tore through the comms. Calls for medics, status reports, panic, and then came the gunfire. From the hills, not the target. Dozens of muzzle flashes flickered like fireflies of death. The enemy firing from entrenched, coordinated positions. The ambush was perfect. The SEALs were trapped, pinned in open ground, nowhere to run. Lawson barked into the radio, voice cutting through the chaos, trying to pull his men together. Reyna's eyes stayed cold, calculating. She tracked each burst, noting direction, rhythm, command fire. Her hand brushed her sidearm, then froze. Not yet. Not unless it was absolutely necessary. 10 meters to her left, a SEAL dropped, clutching his leg as blood pooled beneath him. Another dragged him behind a low wall as bullets sliced the air, snapping like hornets. The fire base was supposed to cover them. "Where's Delta?" Lawson shouted. The radio operator answered, strained. "Outpost Delta's under heavy fire. They can't support." Of course they couldn't. This wasn't a random ambush. It was a coordinated strike designed to annihilate the entire task force, and it was working. Reyna grabbed her comms, voice level, emotionless. "Heathen 6, this is Cypher 7. Request immediate air support, coordinates to follow. Multiple fortified positions, 30 to 40 hostiles." Cypher 7, Heathen 6. Air assets 20 mics out. Can you hold? She scanned the field. Bodies down, fire everywhere. 20 minutes might as well be 20 hours. Negative, Heathen 6. We need it now. Working it, Cypher 7. Stand by. Standing by wasn't an option. Another man went down and stayed down. The medic who tried to reach him got pinned behind shattered stone. Reyna spotted the enemy's leader, halfway up the ridge, directing fire with perfect control. Harlow stumbled back to Lawson's position, face streaked with blood. "Sir, we're getting chewed up. We have to move. Find cover, anything." Lawson snapped, "There is no cover. It's all kill zone." They planned this perfectly. "Then we die here," Morales snapped, his earlier bravado replaced with pure fear. Reyna Carter stood up, just stood, calm, deliberate, like someone rising from a pew. Every SEAL turned to her, disbelief frozen on their faces. Standing in open fire was suicide. Everyone knew that. Everyone except Reyna, who was already moving toward a small dirt berm that barely counted as cover, but offered a clean sight line up the ridge. "Carter, get down!" Lawson shouted, his voice drowned by gunfire. She didn't. Her hand slipped behind her vest and drew out a rifle that no intel officer should have been carrying. Sleek, matte black, customized to an operator's perfection, a suppressor for silence. Optics worth more than a truck. She dropped to prone in one smooth motion, bipod snapping open, cheek settling against the stock, breath steady. Through her scope, the battlefield unfolded in perfect focus, muzzle flashes flaring, fighters darting behind rock walls, heat shimmer blurring the air around overworked barrels. "What the hell?" Harlow started, but her first shot cut him off. A muted crack barely rose above the chaos, and a machine gunner on the ridge dropped lifeless, his PKM clattering silent. Before anyone registered it, Reyna had already shifted aim. Another soft report. Another man down. The one barking orders. The one who thought he was invisible behind his cover. He wasn't. Reyna worked through her targets like an algorithm, every pull of the trigger precise and final. No suppressive fire, no wasted rounds, just surgical elimination. Years of training, cold calculation, and flawless mastery condensed into motion. The SEALs could only stare as the quiet analyst became something they'd never seen before. Her compact weapon shouldn't have been able to reach that far, yet her rounds found their mark every time. She adjusted for wind, heat, and elevation with movements so subtle they looked like instinct. A pair of insurgents prepared an RPG shot. Reyna dropped the gunner at 400 meters, then the loader before he could blink. Two bodies hit the ground, the rocket rolling uselessly away. "Jesus Christ," Morales breathed. "Who the hell is she?" Lawson watched through his scope, tracing her shots as enemy fire faltered under the unseen precision tearing through their line. "Carter, what are you?" She didn't respond. Her world had shrunk to crosshairs, breath, and heartbeat. The man she'd tagged as the commander was trying to move across the terraces, believing the ridgeline hid him. He was wrong. The angle was brutal, a moving target, partly obscured. But Reyna led the shot with perfect calculation, exhaled, and pressed. Through the optic, the man dropped mid-stride. The fight changed instantly. Without leadership, enemy fire broke apart, panic replacing discipline. Fighters scrambled for cover that no longer existed, running from death they couldn't see. Reyna fired 3 more times, each round deliberate, final. Every shot hit home. The message was simple and devastating. They planned it perfectly. "Then we die here," Jake Morales snapped, his swagger replaced by raw fear. Reyna Carter stood up, simply rose, calm and steady like someone lifting from a pew, every SEAL staring as if she'd lost her mind. Standing in a firefight was how you got shot. Everyone knew that, everyone except Reyna, who was already moving toward a low berm that offered marginal cover and a clear sightline to the enemy. "Carter, get down!" Blake Lawson roared, his voice swallowed by gunfire. She ignored him, sliding a compact, non-standard rifle from beneath her vest. Matte black, custom, a suppressor for quiet, optics that screamed operator grade. She dropped prone behind the berm, bipod snapping, cheek to stock, breath slowing into controlled cadence. Through her scope, the enemy positions sharpened. Muzzle flashes, movement behind rock walls, heat shimmer over barrels that had been working too long. "What the hell?" Dean Harlow began. Then Rena's first shot, nearly a whisper, cut the word off. A PKM gunner pitched backward, weapon clattering silent. Before anyone comprehended what had happened, she'd already shifted to her next target. Another muted crack, and a coordinator who'd thought himself safe behind stone collapsed. Rena moved through targets with machine-like efficiency, deliberate pulls, final results, not suppressing, not spraying, but surgically removing threats one by one. The kind of marksmanship that looked effortless but required years of study, perfect ballistic sense, and a cold nerve few ever cultivated. The SEALs watched, mouths shut, as the analyst in their midst became something else entirely. Her compact rifle kept finding impossibly distant targets. She compensated for wind, elevation, the rising heat haze with adjustments so subtle they seemed instinctive, an RPG crew readied to fire. She put a round through the gunner's chest at 400 meters, then transitioned and stopped the loader before he could react. Both men hitting the dirt within 2 seconds, the rocket rolling uselessly down the slope. "Jesus Christ," Morales whispered. "Who is she?" Lawson tracked her shots through his own optic as enemy positions crumbled under precision they hadn't expected. "Carter, what are you?" he demanded. She didn't answer. Her world narrowed to crosshairs, trigger cadence, breath. The man she'd pegged as commander tried to reposition, moving between terraces thinking the ground hid him. She led the moving target perfectly, squeezed when everything aligned, and watched him collapse mid-stride. The effect was immediate. Without central control, their disciplined fire stuttered, then dissolved into frantic, uncoordinated bursts as individuals made survival choices instead of tactical ones. Fighters who'd thought themselves safe began to run, only to be cut down as Rena fired 3 more quick, precise rounds, each one catching a retreating fighter. The lesson stark and merciless. There was nowhere to hide from the unseen. "Get the wounded to medical before we debate this again," Rena thought as the flight back ate 40 minutes. She sat by the crew chief, methodically cleaning her rifle while the SEALs clustered, some treating the injured, others staring through the 1,000-yard replay only combat carves into your head, and a few stealing looks at the quiet woman breaking down a weapon they'd just watched slaughter men with clinical precision. Chief Dean Harlow finally left his team and took the seat beside her. Silent at first, watching oilcloth wipe carbon from the bolt, a bore snake pulled through the barrel, every motion efficient and exact. "My daughter wants to join the Corps," he said at last, voice rough. "Marine Corps. I've been telling her it's no place for women, that she won't get respect, that the men won't accept her." Rena didn't look up, kept cleaning. "Stop lying to her," she said. "Stop telling her she can't when you should be teaching her how to be ready." He was quiet, then asked the question he couldn't quite finish. "How long?" "The real work, not the analyst cover." 8 years, she said. "How many have you killed?" he murmured. She answered without flinching. "Enough that I stopped counting. Not enough that I stopped remembering. Every face, every shot, every choice." "You're young," he protested. "Old enough," she replied, finally meeting his eyes. "If your daughter wants to serve, help her. Train her. Don't lie and tell her it's impossible because it's hard. Some women do this better than most men. We work twice as hard for half the credit, but we can do it. What you saw today isn't only training. That's what happens when someone with the right aptitude gets unlimited ammunition, endless training time, and instructors who only care about making you the best version of yourself." She reassembled the rifle with practiced speed. Stop treating warfare like a man's job and start treating it like a professional skill anyone with the right attributes can master. The helicopter banked toward the base. Through the open ramp, she could see tents, vehicles, the logistics of modern war laid out like a model. Proof that someone had known exactly how the SEALs would move and prepared a flawless trap. Someone would want answers about how Rena Carter dismantled it. The landing erupted into controlled chaos, medics scrambling to the wounded, officers taking reports, the base commander demanding immediate briefings. Rena slipped away with her rifle broken down and secured, heading for the intel workspace, having already written the reports she knew they'd want. She'd gone maybe 50 meters when a voice stopped her. Captain Carter. Not Lucy, not Carter. Captain Carter, full rank. She turned to find a man in civilian clothes beside a black SUV that didn't belong on a FOB. A fit man in his 50s with the look of someone who'd been operational and hadn't softened. "Mr. Harrison," she said flatly. "Walk with me." "Not a request," he replied. She fell in beside him as they moved away towards stacked shipping containers for privacy. Alone, Harrison faced her bluntly. 16 separate intel feeds told me this would be a clean hit. Target in place, minimal security, textbook raid. Instead, it turned into the kind of mess that gets congressional subpoenas. Intel was compromised. How and by whom is the question. But that's not why I'm here. He studied her with hard eyes. You violated your cover. You were to observe, take notes, provide live updates, not engage in direct action that resulted in, he checked a tablet, 17 enemy KIA attributed to a single shooter. Rena stood unmoving. "Would you prefer those 17 to be American?" she asked. "I'd prefer you follow orders," he said. "Sasikotsaina, that's all you need to know," she replied, emphasizing rank almost like a warning. "They told you to keep your cover as an analyst while gathering intel on SEAL tactics. That's why they put you there. That's what you were supposed to do." "My job is to keep Americans alive," Harrison said, voice hardening. "Your job is what I tell you it is. You're not a SEAL, not a Ranger, not even officially military anymore. You're an asset, a tool we deploy when conventional options fail, and tools that act on their own tend to get locked away." "Are you threatening me?" he added, reminding her there are consequences for going off script. "The op you observed is blown. Every man on that team now knows there's something odd about you. They'll talk. They'll speculate. And sooner or later, someone will start asking the kinds of questions that lead to answers we don't want found." Rena shifted the tiniest fraction. Harrison noticed. He'd been trained to notice. And took a half step back, suddenly aware he was speaking to someone who'd killed 17 men before lunch without breaking a sweat. "So what happens now?" she said flatly. "Now you write your report. Claim the enemy lanes were softened by preparatory fires, that you provided real-time intel enabling effective engagement. Say everything except that you personally removed half the enemy force." "You want me to lie?" she said. "I want you to maintain operational security," he replied. "There's a difference." She'd known this exchange was inevitable the moment she picked up her rifle. Every operation carries consequences, every decision a price. And if she refused, they'd shelf her in a Virginia basement analyzing satellite photos of empty sand until she was irrelevant. Was that the fate she'd accept, while Americans died in the field? Harrison had her because he knew her weakness and how to exploit it. "I'll write the report," she said at last. "Good," he answered. "And remember, next insertion, you're there to observe, analyze, support, not to go rogue." He turned away, leaving her among stacked containers while the Afghan sun beat down and the base hummed with the ordinary business of war. She looked at her steady hands. No tremor, no visible residue of what she'd done. An inwardly calculated loyalty and duty, the cost of following orders versus doing what's right. The difference between a tool and a person, making a choice that would define what came next. 3 days later, she sat in a windowless concrete briefing room with Commander Blake Lawson, Chief Dean Harlow, and 2 JSOC officers. Lawson read the official line. Preparatory fires degraded enemy positions. Captain Carter provided valuable real-time intelligence that enabled targeting. The op, though causing casualties, was ultimately successful. Then he paused, eyes on her, and said what everyone already knew was true. So I'll ask again, Captain, who do you really work for? Raina had spent 3 days shaping an answer. She'd written Harrison's report, filed the paperwork, preserved cover and operational security, yet sitting before men who'd nearly died because intel failed, she chose a different truth. I work for an organization that doesn't officially exist, she said. We identify situations where conventional military options are impossible or inadvisable. We insert assets, people like me, to resolve those situations through direct action while preserving plausible deniability for the U.S. government. Assassins, one JSOC officer muttered. Problem solvers, she corrected. Targets are verified, legitimate threats to American lives or interests. But sometimes those threats sit behind diplomatic shields or political constraints, or in places too dangerous to approach openly. Harlow leaned forward. So you're a ghost, an urban legend, one of those operators people whisper about but aren't meant to believe in. I'm someone given specific training and authorities to do a very specific job. Keep Americans alive when normal rules make that impossible, she replied. Lawson's face cycled disbelief, anger, then reluctant acceptance, and the ugly truth landed. The ambush had been perfect because someone within Afghan security had tipped off the insurgents. They knew we were coming, knew our routes, knew our tactics. What was meant to be a massacre became a lesson in underestimating the wrong person. You saved our lives, Blake Lawson said. I did my job, Raina replied. No, he shook his head. You went far beyond orders. You risked exposure, your cover, whatever mission you were on to save men who spent the flight treating you like you didn't belong. She was quiet a long moment. Then because that's what we do, she said. We keep Americans alive even when they don't know we exist, even when they wouldn't approve of our methods if they knew. We stand in shadows and do the ugly work so people like you can do the heroic work in the light. That's the deal and the burden. The room fell silent until a JSOC officer cut in. This conversation never happened. This briefing never occurred. Officially, Captain Carter provided intel support. Nothing else. Heads nodded. Good, because if word got out, we had assets operating outside normal chains doing lethal work without official oversight. There'd be investigations, congressional hearings, criminal exposure, and everyone in this room would be dragged in. They filed out one by one while Lawson lingered until it was just him and Raina. For what it's worth, I was wrong about you, he admitted. Is it lonely? He asked, and she thought about it sometimes, then about families who got to go home because she'd been there, about attacks that never happened because someone like her was in the right place at the right time and remembered why she did it. Will I see you again? He asked. Probably not, she said. People like us move, adapt, disappear to stay effective. She gathered her minimal gear and walked to the door. Lawson called after her one last thing and she paused. "Thank you for my men," she said. "You're welcome, Commander. Do me a favor. Stop underestimating people because of their looks or their files. The most dangerous people are the ones you never see coming." She left him alone in the empty briefing room, 6 months later in a different country on a different op. She sat in an observation post, watching a target house through high-powered optics. The mission was simple: identify, confirm, eliminate, work that made no headlines, earned no medals, appeared in no official record. Her spotter, a young operator on his second tour, whispered, "You really just sit, wait for a shot, take it, then vanish? Doesn't it bother you? Killing from distance?" She adjusted her scope for a wind shift he'd missed and answered, "It used to." Then I stopped thinking of it as killing and started thinking of it as solving problems. This man plans an attack to kill hundreds, maybe thousands. He's shielded by his government, his security, international law. Conventional options are exhausted. So I'm here, and tomorrow hundreds of people who don't know I exist will wake up alive because of tonight. That's how I live with it. The target appeared in a window. Her finger moved to the trigger. "Stand by," the spotter said, standing by. The shot was clean, final. The man dropped and she was already breaking down her weapon, preparing to disappear into the night. Another problem solved. Another threat eliminated. Another day as the person nobody is supposed to know about. Doing the job nobody will ever officially acknowledge. The wolf doesn't announce itself to the flock. And America's deadliest wolves wear faces nobody will remember, hold jobs no one will admit exist, and carry burdens no one will understand. Rena Carter was one of those wolves, and the world was safer for it, even if the world would never know her name. Thank you for watching Captain Joe's Stories.